Welcome back to the 2017 Anaheim Pokemon Regional Championships. My name is Gabby Snyder. I'm joined here by Adam Doricott, and we have a really surprising newcomer matchup going on next round.
Well, yeah, Dwayne and I were talking a couple of rounds ago about how there are always players in the field looking for that breakout performance, and we've got two players here sat undefeated. One of them, this is actually their first tournament they've attended, so a pretty good way to start. Aaliyah
Definitely a good way to start.
our other player, kind of a few regionals so far, not got that story kind of behind them that a number of the players in the field have. But, good performances never quite made that breakout one, and if you're sitting at the halfway point, just over the halfway point, in fact, at an undefeated record, yeah, you're in really good shape to carry on, and maybe this is going to be the breakout one. We do see from time to time regionals won by somebody we've not heard of before. Somebody completely comes out the blue, they just grab something, they run with it, and they find themselves, able to just capitalize on being unknown. I think that definitely helps some of these players. So I'm really excited to see this matchup. It should be a good one. They've definitely got some good teams between them. These aren't random newcomers. These are very well-trained players.
These are well-trained players with very interesting teams indeed. We have Gabriel versus Aaliyah here. We have Gabriel on your left-hand side of the screen running that Tapu Koko, Tapu Lele, Arcanine, Ninetales, Pheromosa, and Garchomp Pokemon, with Aaliyah running Tapu Koko, Buzzwole, Garchomp, Gyarados, Nihilego, and Talonflame. So first Buzzwole of the day.
It's our first Buzzwole, but they both have that bug fighting type on their team. Obviously, those Ultra Beasts, kind of a partnership. They play it a little bit differently, though. Obviously, Pheromosa, very, very frail, very, very fast, but able to do a whole heap of damage when it gets going if it's unchecked. Buzzwole, a little bit bulkier, still able to do a preposterous amount of damage, but it doesn't have that speed that a lot of teams want. We're not looking at too much speed control if you look at these teams. We do have, interestingly though, Tailwind potential from the Talonflame on Aaliyah's side. We haven't seen much Tailwind. After the change to Gale Wings, I think a number of players shying away from Talonflame, even though it's still very, very good, only able to capitalize on that ability when at full health. But it does mean you can set up a Tailwind unhindered if you take damage that turn. Not a bad thing. You've got the Tailwind set up, you're still naturally very fast, you're still able to throw out big Brave Birds, and we have even seen some using Supersonic Sky Strike, so that could be a Pokemon to watch out for in that matchup, especially with the presence of the Pheromosa. Is going to have to watch out though for a number of things, including that Ninetales, I think.
Yeah, so both of these trainers are ready to go. This is Gabriel versus Aaliyah, both currently 5-0 here in Anaheim, looking for those last couple of wins. They need to lock them into top cut. And here we go with game one. Talonflame Garchomp on Aaliyah's side of the field, starting off strong against the Tapu Lele and Ninetales on Gabriel's side of the field.
No, I like these matchups. That Talonflame looking to maybe set up the Tailwind. If you can get the Tailwind up, it is going to mean Garchomp isn't going to have to worry so much about the Ninetales here. That's usually the reason people bring Ninetales, is it's naturally faster than the Garchomp. And of course, once Tailwind's up, you're now free to throw out Earthquakes. Tapu Lele is definitely going to be a concern also for the Garchomp, because we have seen the Tapu Leles today basically exclusively Choice Scarf, I think, with some Psychicking, but a lot of people picking up the Tapu Lele, going with that Choice Scarf. And I think maybe this turn is going to be a very simple one for Aaliyah, but very good offensive pressure coming out on Gabriel's side of the field. You've got that Tapu Lele, which is able to put out big Psychics on the Psychic terrain. Does ridiculous amounts of damage if you get caught by it. And of course, Ninetales with the Blizzard, uninterrupted, no way to change the weather on Aaliyah's side. That Hail's going to stay, so you can either go offensive. If you think the Tailwind's going to come out, there's also the option to set up the Aurora Veil here too.
Garchomp switching out, Gyarados taking the field in its place. Its Intimidate probably not going to help out that much, given the fact that both Tapu Lele and Ninetales are known to be specially attacking Pokemon, but that Gyarados can certainly take a Fairy type moves. We see Talonflame go for that Tailwind, boosting the speed of Aaliyah's Pokemon. We see Ninetales using the Aurora Veil, so I think this is the first time we've seen it today. It's going to act essentially as a Reflect and as a Light Screen, boosting the defenses, and we see Tapu Lele go for a Psychic immediately into that into that Talonflame, and it just knocks it right out.
Oh, this is a very strong start from Gabriel. Capitalizing on the fact that you know Tailwind's going to go up and you don't have anything to do about it, set up Aurora Veil, and basically you're able to weather the storm while that Tailwind is in play. You're basically able to take those attacks with a little more ease, especially with the potential of damage from something like a Gyarados here. Setting up that Aurora Veil is going to be absolutely huge, so I love that play from Gabriel. And Tapu Lele just retaliating, using its Psychic terrain to get a knockout on Talonflame, puts you in the Pokemon advantage as well, so you don't have to worry about any follow-up move from the Talonflame. And I think now, even with the Tailwind, obviously Aaliyah's going to be able to attack first, but I think then we're going to see really strong retaliation out of Gabriel here.
Garchomp returning to the field in Talonflame's place. Still not liking the potential for that Blizzard, for Ice Beam, for Moonblast, for Dazzling Gleam. There are just so many things on the field right now that Garchomp will not like.
No, that Garchomp's in a very rough position. Of course, it would be able to move first, and we've seen a lot of them picking up Poison Jab. It's going to help against Ninetales, potentially even for a Rock Slide. We know how easy it is to get an advantageous situation when you basically Rock Slide by going first. That might help. It'll do good damage to the Ninetales. But whatever happens, I think something's going to have to be targeted down very, very aggressively here. Gyarados does have that nice synergy with Garchomp in that it is a flying type, and so you can throw out the Earthquakes, but I think you're going to need a little more damage if you want to really deal with these two. If you let Tapu Lele and Ninetales attack you, there are going to be big knockouts. Obviously, Garchomp weak to Blizzard, and Gyarados taking a neutral hit. The threat of Freeze Dry too.
Poison Jab from that Garchomp into the Tapu Lele, but it is not enough. And there it is, the first Z move of the game. It is the Hydro Vortex.
Well, it looks like Gyarados wants to remove at least one thing from the field here, using the Tailwind to set up, get Gyarados going first, and then be putting this damage down nice and early. I think the biggest threat here is the Tapu Lele, and I wouldn't be surprised to see that targeted like we are getting here. So the combination of the Poison Jab and the Hydro Vortex, enough to remove Tapu Lele from play, and very quickly even up the Pokemon count. The interesting thing though, Ninetales hasn't been touched and it gets a turn to retaliate.
Ninetales using Icy Wind, both to deal some nice chip damage that Gyarados deal a good chunk of damage to the Garchomp, and both lower the speed of Gyarados and Garchomp by one stage.
No, that definitely helps. Garchomp not going to be able to do as well. Obviously, there's Tailwind still up, but if these Pokemon are still on the field while Tailwind expires, it's going to be a little bit harder for them to capitalize on because they're going to be slow once those Icy Winds take effect. Of course, leveling up the Pokemon count, not a bad thing to do at all, but you do allow this Arcanine to come in, and this Intimidate is going to be really, really big.
Yes, it'll definitely stop Garchomp in its tracks, weakening that Poison Jab, which otherwise probably would deal a significant amount of damage to that Ninetales, weakening the potential for an Earthquake from that Garchomp, and really just sort of getting even more dividends from that Aurora Veil that was set up back in the beginning of this game.
That's definitely going to help. Of course, Gyarados doesn't have access to the Hydro Vortex anymore. It used it to remove Tapu Lele. So Waterfall would usually do really, really big amounts of damage to Arcanine, potentially knocking it out. With the combination of Aurora Veil and Intimidate, I think Arcanine's going to be able to take it and retaliate, perhaps even set something up, maybe even buy some turns with the Protect here, so that's going to be really good. This Aurora Veil looks like it's going to pay off, though.
Definitely Garchomp not wanting to stick around with that Intimidate, switching out, and Nihilego taking the field in its place. Nihilego is one of those Pokemon that's really an amazing counter for that Arcanine, but whether or not it's going to remain on the field long enough to do so is to be seen. Blizzard from Ninetales targeting down the Gyarados and that Nihilego, not going to damage the Gyarados thanks to a Protect. And Gyarados also protecting during the Wild Charge from Arcanine, so great information moving forward as well.
That's something that's been picking up on Arcanine. Wild Charge was an outsider move a little earlier in the season, but it's definitely picked up recently, and I think it's almost a staple now on the Arcanine. So Gyarados, not safe, especially when that Tailwind expires. It's going to be really important for this last turn of Tailwind that Aaliyah's actually able to capitalize on that. Of course, Nihilego able to put down some big pressure on both the Pokemon on Gabriel's side of the field. We do, of course, have the Arcanine that's weak to the Power Gem, and Ninetales weak to the Sludge Bomb. So many options, but Ninetales usually carrying that Focus Sash is going to be a little bit harder. Maybe the victim of a double target attack. Unfortunately, Arcanine's shown itself to be a problem. If you leave Arcanine unchecked, then guess what? You're going to get caught by a Wild Charge, and that's not going to be fun for any Gyarados involved in that situation.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what Pokemon Gabriel has in the back. We might get to see it this turn. Sludge Bomb into the Ninetales. It's super effective, gets the poison, but does not get the knockout, does not activate any Focus Sash. That is the item that Ninetales is holding, but Waterfall from that Gyarados doing a quick 1-2 punch to knock out that Ninetales. Got a critical hit. Don't think it matters that much. Wild Charge not into the Gyarados, into the Nihilego for that KO. Very
smart play there from Gabriel. Kind of knew that something was going to get knocked out while this Tailwind was up. I think opened up the options to make sure that you got a retaliation knockout. Looking like the Gyarados was going to protect there, but Aaliyah had the Tailwind up, so had to go for something there. Could have been an easy knockout on the Gyarados, but of course once Tailwind expires, the Arcanine is just going to be moving first, and that's going to be really easy to knock out, especially with that Icy Wind on the Gyarados. So however you find the training done on the Gyarados, really easy to get the knockouts on.
The last Pokemon on Gabriel's side of the field has been revealed. It is the Pheromosa. So Pheromosa, a very fast, very frail Pokemon. Not very threatened by the Nihilego, but certainly something that you would want to take down. And another benefit here, I believe that Gyarados has been trapped on the field with an Intimidate.
It has. Since the Arcanines come in, there has been no opportunities for switching on Aaliyah's side of the field, so Gyarados is not able to do as much damage. We do still have Aurora Veil in play as well, even though Ninetales has left the field, it sticks around. So Garchomp may be able to just get easily knocked out here, and Arcanine can follow up. I think the combination of offense now left on Gabriel's side of the field should very easily wrap this game up unless something completely untoward happens.
Yeah, Gyarados is one of those Pokemon that could potentially have something to change things up, but we might not see it yet. Earthquake from that Garchomp, outspeeding the Pheromosa, outspeeding that Arcanine, targeting him down and missing the knockout on Arcanine, just barely not very effective on that Pheromosa, who then retaliates with a lunge, hoping for that knockout. It does indeed get it, taking a little bit of recoil damage thanks to Garchomp's rough skin ability. So it is down to just Gyarados versus the beast boosted Pheromosa, who got a physical attack boost. Wild Charge from that Arcanine, though, will easily clean up this game, and Gabriel wins 2-0 right now, going for game 1.
No, very comfortable play. I think the Arcanine showing the Wild Charge. It does get knocked out by the recoil, but Pheromosa left standing seals up this game for Gabriel. So very smart play. Wasn't too bothered about the Tailwind, and I love the capitalizing on that setup turn. While your opponent's setting up, you basically take the time to set something important up yourself, and Aurora Veil looked to be a little more useful than Tailwind in that game, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. You know, having a speed advantage can be super helpful, but when your opponent essentially has doubled their defenses for 5 turns at least, we still don't know that item on Ninetales. You know, that's really all you need to weather the storm, keep dealing consistent damage, and just wait it out.
No, you're able to basically buy so much time that you wait out the Tailwind, not by switching, not by protecting, but just by not taking enough damage. It's a very smart play, and I think that's something that Aaliyah's going to have to be a little bit concerned about. We've seen the Ninetales today. Basically, people struggle to deal with the fact it carries a Focus Sash. It's not quite so easy to knock out, so I think that Ninetales was the essential part of Gabriel's team, and Aaliyah's going to have to bring a slightly better answer to it in Game 2, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting to look at the Pokemon on, you know, Aaliyah's side of the field. You can see a couple Pokemon that might be able to sort of stop that Ninetales, but not really. It's almost like instead of using the Tailwind, maybe we'll see that Talonflame come out, use its maybe that Supersonic Sky Strike, if that's the move it has.
Also has access to Flare Blitz, which would be doing really good damage.
That would be doing even more damage than a Supersonic Sky Strike to that Ninetales. And just hope that it's not the Focus Sash variety, or maybe double target, just hope for the best.
No, there are definitely quicker options than the Ninetales. We do have the Talonflame and the Tapu Koko, which could be an interesting lead here, especially against this Tapu Lele. You get into the terrain war. We didn't see Tapu Lele's terrain contested at all in that game, and one of the key things about Tapu Lele that has been coming through, I think, in the most recent weeks, when it's been picking up play every tournament I go to, I feel like a new Tapu kind of rises to the top, and this weekend I'm getting a sense that Tapu Lele might be that guardian deity.
Yeah, you know, I think people talk about the metagame cycles. Maybe we've just entered the Tapu cycle.
It certainly seems so. And with the Psychic terrain, it just does so much damage. That move, it's already a fantastic special attacker, so it's able to just capitalize on that and really punish things. We saw it take an easy knockout on the Talonflame, and that Pokemon advantage early on can be absolutely huge in these games, especially when they just go back and forth so quickly.
Yeah, Aaliyah taking until the very last second to pick her team. It almost looked like time has run out. So if we see that Tapu Koko and Buzzwole lead, we will know her 4 Pokemon, unfortunately. You know, one of the downsides to running out of time during team preview is that you don't get to pick. It's just whatever 4 Pokemon are at the top of your party, and you just have to make it work.
Well, we'll see if it was just that or perhaps a slight connection issue. The 3DS has that kind of interesting nuance to it. But I think, you know, making the decision in team preview, something that you need to think about, especially when you lose game 1. You gather some information, and you really want to take all of that time to think about what you saw and what you can do to deal with it. So if you identify Aurora Veil as the problem, then you're in really good condition to adapt your lead to deal with Aurora Veil.
Yes, here we go. Game 2 is starting after Gabriel wins Game 1. Garchomp and Tapu Koko out on the field for Aaliyah, so making a bit of an adjustment. Ninetales and Arcanine, though, out for Gabriel. That Intimidate from Arcanine immediately weakening Garchomp's damage potential, though that Tapu Koko will still be super powered thanks to that electric terrain.
Leading Garchomp again is certainly interesting from Aaliyah. We saw the Ninetales lead in Game 1, and there's no reason to suspect it wouldn't happen again. Of course, Garchomp is actually slower than Ninetales, something that's made it so popular. It's a very easy answer to Garchomp, which has been the prominent Dragon type this season. If you can catch it with Blizzards and even as we saw Icy Winds, you're going to be doing a lot of damage to it. I like the adaptation of Tapu Koko. That gives an option to move before the Ninetales, and we've seen some of these Tapu Koko carry Taunt. So if the Aurora Veil is what you're really concerned about, you see that Gabriel's got Ninetales up, so Garchomp likely to switch. You think, I've got some time to set up, of course, the Aurora Veil. If you get caught by the Taunt, then guess what? Aurora Veil's not going up, and you've wasted your turn, allowing a very much free switch. Of course, Arcanine able to do something, but it's going to be a little bit limited against what it can do, especially against something like this Tapu Koko and Garchomp.
Yeah, that Wild Charge, though, will be boosted thanks to the Electric Terrain. Not that it would deal any damage to that Garchomp anyways, but it could be an interesting option to fire off against that Tapu Koko. Not going to see any of that this turn. Tapu Lele switching in the field for that Arcanine, getting rid of the Electric Terrain, bringing with it that Psychic Terrain that it knows and loves so dearly. So Garchomp moving first with a Poison Jab, outspeeding the Ninetales, doing about 50% damage to it. No Aurora Veil Thunderbolt from that Tapu Koko into the Ninetales as well for the knockout.
Aaliyah revealing one of the little tricks on her team, of course, that Choice Scarf Garchomp. Garchomp, another Pokemon up for debate between usually the two items, and that's like a decision you have to make in Game 1 and try and get that information coming into Game 2 without that information could hurt a little bit. We've seen it locked into Poison Jab now, it's got the Choice Scarf up, and although it's probably going to get caught with another Intimidate from the Arcanine here to limit its damage output, Tapu Lele is still not going to enjoy taking Poison Jabs and a move from Tapu Koko, which hasn't had its damage output lessened outside of the terrain changing.
Arcanine back in for the Ninetales, intimidating that Garchomp once again, also intimidating that Tapu Koko, though that Tapu Koko doesn't really care as much.
Not too bothered about it. It is annoyed that its terrain is gone, but it's able to do good damage, so another combination move, the potential of Poison Jab followed up by Thunderbolt, might just be enough to deal with this Tapu Lele. Obviously Arcanine again in a position where it's not too worried, not going to be able to capitalize off the Electric Terrain with a Wild Charge this time, but it's still in a good position. Of course, Garchomp revealing its Choice Scarf means that Arcanine doesn't have to be concerned at all about the Earthquakes.
Garchomp switching out, dropping those Intimidates. Gyarados coming out in its place, bringing an Intimidate of its own, weakening that Arcanine's attack power, weakening that Tapu Lele's attack power. Tapu Koko moving next with a Thunderbolt into the Arcanine. It does a ton of damage, even though Electric Terrain is not present. Flare Blitz from the Arcanine into the Tapu Koko. Will it be enough to knock it out? It misses. It does not get knocked out by its own recoil, and Tapu Lele uses that Moonblast to target down the Gyarados, which used to be a Garchomp.
No, both these Pokemon on Aaliyah's side of the field, though, very, very low health. Obviously, the hail damage is going to start to add up, and that's going to be a problem. But it's also going to be adding up on Arcanine. Only one more turn in the hail that Arcanine can withstand. And we did see a lot of damage come out of that Tapu Koko. That's definitely something that, if it goes to Game 3, Gabriel's going to have to contemplate just how much damage that was able to do to both the Pokemon we've seen it attacking so far, including that Ninetales. So I think maybe Gabriel able to buy some time with the use of the hail, maybe get rid of the Tapu Koko through hail and put Gyarados in range to get knocked out through it too.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if that is a really strong Tapu Koko, maybe it's carrying a choice item like Choice Specs, or maybe that's just an incredibly frail Arcanine. That seemed to be an unusual amount of damage.
Arcanine's been one of those Pokemon who people have been adapting to fit their team. It's very flexible, and some people, particularly those who go offensive with it, if it's got Wild Charge and Flare Blitz, likely taking more training in the offenses and a little bit of speed as well to really try and deal with things as quickly as possible.
Tapu Koko targeting down that Tapu Lele with a Thunderbolt. Gyarados moving before the Arcanine with a Waterfall to knock it out. Tapu Lele going to most likely Moonblast or Psychic one of these Pokemon. It looks like it is the Moonblast into the Gyarados for a KO as well.
The Gyarados getting removed from the field, but a lot of Pokemon getting removed in that turn. 2 Pokemon going down to knockouts, and Tapu Koko hoping it can hold on. Unfortunately, it cannot during this hail, so it is actually a 2-for-1 trade in the turn in Gabriel's favor. Tapu Lele, of course, moving last, looked like it was in a lot of trouble. It is going to be staring down this Choice Scarf Garchomp on the return to the field, though, and that's going to be a problem. Tapu Lele isn't going to need to be targeted by Poison Jab, and Earthquake should be enough to do it, so that definitely opens up more options for Aaliyah. I wouldn't suspect Earthquake with Nihilego next to it unless there's a Protect coming out. Pheromosa, though, might be able to help out a little bit here.
Yeah, Nihilego and Faramosa, I think, are two of the more uncommon Ultra Beasts that have been seeing more play as of late. Lots of Nihilego this weekend. It has great typing. It has access to amazing special defense, amazing special attack. Faramosa as well, though, a very interesting Pokemon. It can go either physical or special in terms of its offensive capabilities. It's very fast. A lot of people like to run it with that Phytium Z crystal, giving it access to all-out pummeling. We've only seen Lunge so far on this Faramosa, so...
But it could be scary if it gets another Beast Boost. That's
the
big thing.
It could be very scary if it gets another Beast Boost. We'll just have to see. Garchomp moving first with that Poison Jab, targeting down the Tapu Lele for that knockout. Faramosa should be moving next if all goes according to plan. High Jump Kick, targeting down the Nihilego. It does connect, and it misses out on a knockout thanks to the Focus Sash item. So we know that Nihilego will be knocked out by the hail. How much damage does the Sludge Bomb do? It does enough, and Aaliyah wins game 2, so it looks like we're moving into game 3.
Well, what we saw in that game, actually, and something that's definitely interesting to note, is a lot of items weren't revealed for Aaliyah's team, such as the Choice Scarf on the Garchomp, because Tailwind was up, so you weren't really able to tell where it came in there. But Aaliyah, the Focus Sash on the Nihilego as well, absolutely clutch. That Focus Sash has been so essential to some Pokemon, Ninetales in particular, and the Nihilego there not getting knocked out, being able to retaliate with the Sludge Bomb was really, really big. So I love the way that the items came into play in that game. Of course, Tapu Koko's items still a little bit of a mystery. We only saw the 3 Thunderbolts, but very powerful Thunderbolts they were.
Yeah, I think it was a great adjustment of Aaliyah after game 1, realizing that she didn't need the Tailwind for that speed control. She could just send in her Scarf Garchomp and just knock things out before the Aurora Veil took into play. Whether or not that strategy will work for Game 3, though, is to be seen now that Gabriel knows her main way of stopping it.
Well, Aurora Veil was a bit obvious that it was going to be set up, so the double target was easily punished there. I think if Gabriel adapts his leads here, brings something a little bit different that doesn't set up Aurora Veil, isn't relying on getting that set up, then he could be in a really good position. But that Tapu Koko and Garchomp lead put pressure on a number of things that Gabriel has inside the field. Of course, we do see Tapu Koko, which isn't going to want to deal with a Choice Scarf Garchomp. Tapu Lele in exactly the same boat, and the Ninetales here. So all of these things definitely a little bit concerned about that Choice Scarf Garchomp, and I think Ninetales is going to have to do a little bit more to try and deal with it, potentially throw an Icy Wind out, or just catch it with a Blizzard and make sure you don't get double targeted before you even get to move.
Here we go, Game 3 of Round 6 here in Anaheim. Whoever wins this moves on to Round 7 undefeated. Garchomp and Tapu Koko again out on the field for Aaliyah, and Tapu Lele and Garchomp for Gabriel. So it is a Tapu Garchomp mirror here. We do see the Electric Surge go first on the Tapu Koko, which means Psychic Terrain will be ruling the day.
No, that's really helpful, of course, for the Tapu Lele. Getting your terrain up is super, super important because you're just able to do so much more damage. Tapu Koko is already doing a lot of damage without the terrain, and if you let it have electric terrain uncontested, that's so much damage that a lot of Pokemon on, I think, Gabriel's side of the team aren't able to handle. The Garchomp mirror match, definitely interesting. We do, of course, know what Aaliyah's has in the Choice Scarf. The item on Gabriel's could definitely be up for debate, and that could swing the momentum here. If it's something like the Ground EMZ, obviously it would be an easy knockout on Tapu Koko, but it would also be a lot of damage down on Garchomp. No Aurora Veil though, so Tapu Lele potentially in range to get knocked out by this Poison Jab.
Poison Jab from Garchomp on Aaliyah's side of the field, targeting down that Tapu Lele. It's super effective, but not enough for the knockout. Tapu Koko following up with a Dazzling Gleam, missing the knockout on Garchomp, missing the knockout on Tapu Lele, who then got that Garchomp firing off a Z move.
It's going for the Tectonic Rage, and whatever it targets here, it's going to be doing so much damage. It could be matching the Garchomp on Aaliyah's side of the field, targeting that down, hoping it does enough damage, and maybe some follow-up damage, of course, from the Tapu Lele. It is the Garchomp, so looking to get down big damage, maybe a little bit overkill in the case of the Tapu Koko, but it may be able to get the one-hit knockout. In some cases it does, in this case it does not. And a Thunderbolt in retaliation from the Tapu Lele on Gabriel's side, so no spread move, no Dazzling Gleam, maybe relying on the Tectonic Rage to knock out the Garchomp, or calling the Gyarados switch in that case. You know, Tapu Koko not taking too much damage at all, something like a Psychic would have done more, and not getting a knockout there is pretty bad, I think, for Gabriel. It basically means Aaliyah's able to target things down early again. We saw Garchomp throw out the big Poison Jab, if Tapu Koko can just Dazzle and Gleam again, could easily pick up a double knockout here. So a really bad turn, I think, there for Gabriel, not able to get knockouts.
Aaliyah switching out the Garchomp into the Gyarados. I think it's a great play knowing that Tapu Koko will outspeed both Pokemon on Gabriel's side of the field and get those knockouts if needed. That Intimidate certainly will help as well on the off chance that Garchomp does attack. Tapu Lele out for Arcanine, who comes in to intimidate the Gyarados and that Tapu Koko. So we won't see a double knockout this turn, but thanks to the Dazzling Gleam, that Garchomp certainly won't be sticking around long.
No, that switch, very smart from Aaliyah. I think there's a lot more to it than just getting Garchomp safe. Knowing about the threat of the Arcanine, basically Aaliyah knows that Dazzling Gleam will do what it needs to this turn. It'll either get the double knockout or it'll force a switch. Now, the Arcanine switch looking likely, it's very smart to switch out your Garchomp. Of course, with the Choice Scarf, it's your big damage threat, realistically. So it's going to be a little bit tougher, of course, to deal with that. We do see the Tapu Koko come in, though, and the terrain has changed to a very favorable terrain for Aaliyah here.
Yeah, electric terrain out on the field. Tapu Koko from Gabriel's side, setting that up, threatening that Gyarados, but more importantly, boosting the damage potential of the Tapu Koko on Aaliyah's side of the field. We've already seen it do an absurd amount of damage with that Thunderbolt, most likely indicating some sort of choice specs item. If that is the case, we will not see Tapu Koko able to take advantage of it, thanks to the fact that it might have locked itself into that Dazzling Gleam, but you never know. We don't know anything for certain yet. We haven't really seen it use its item, so we can only make guesses right now.
Yeah, well, we do see the Tapu Koko leave the field, so it's quite likely that it's that Choice Specs variety, and bringing it back in later could be absolutely huge for the amount of damage it's able to put out.
Gyarados protecting this turn, afraid of the Wild Charge and the Thunderbolt threat from both the Pokemon on Gabriel's side. Extreme Speed into the Nihilego. It's not very effective taking that hit for its buddy Tapu Koko. And Gyarados protecting itself from the attack from Gabriel's Tapu Koko.
So that Tapu Koko leaving the field confirms our suspicions from the earlier games that it is the Choice Specs variety. Obviously, the Choice Scarf already located on the Garchomp, and Choice Band not ideal on a Tapu Koko. So very smart play. The Gyarados is still definitely in danger from this Tapu Koko. There could be a very nice switch into the Garchomp here. That's a really good option. But Nihilego able to put pressure down on this Arcanine, maybe draw away the attentions of this Tapu Koko. Gabriel definitely has an option here to start swinging momentum back in his favor if he can pick up a knockout on the Nihilego and ignore a potential switch on Aaliyah's side.
Gyarados switching out and Tapu Koko taking the field in its place, looking to take advantage of that electric terrain while it's still around. Extreme Speed from that Arcanine into the Nihilego, once again chipping away at its health. And Tapu Koko from Gabriel's side of the field using its Discharge to just target everything, paralyzing his own Arcanine, knocking out the Nihilego and bringing Aaliyah's Tapu Koko down to just a third of its health remaining and revealing that it's holding the Life Orb item.
Life Orb is the most common item to basically boost your damage. It's really helpful because it gives you that flexibility in moves. Interesting to see the Extreme Speed consistently from the Arcanine here. I'm very concerned about the item potentially on that. But staring down this Garchomp, that Tapu Koko is going to be in a little bit of danger. It's the Choice Spec variety, so it doesn't have the option to protect. But if the Garchomp feels confident enough in being able to knock everything out, obviously the Arcanine is paralyzed, so it might not get the Extreme Speed off. Not something you can rely on here to knock out the Garchomp. If you're able to do that, you could lock into Earthquake and potentially just sweep the back end of this game away with your Garchomp.
Tapu Koko switching out and Gyarados switching in its place, so Tapu Koko not having to worry about an Earthquake intimidating the Arcanine, further reducing the odds of that Arcanine knocking out the Garchomp with that Extreme Speed, but it is fully paralyzed. Garchomp is free to Earthquake to its heart content, and it will knock out that Arcanine. It does knock out that Tapu Koko, and it is now 3-on-1.
Well, very smart play from Aaliyah, and it's the long game that's coming to fruition here. We saw a number of switches early on, getting that Garchomp out when Arcanine was entering the field to avoid the Intimidates, basically making sure you could get things weakened, so that when Garchomp comes in at the end of the game, it has a lot more knowledge about what move it needs to lock into with that choice item. In this case, it is going to be the Earthquake, and it's going to be easily enough to knock out this Tapu Lele, but basically you use Garchomp to get off to an early advantage, then you switch it back out, and then you have a full knowledge of what the team is. You've already got Tapu Lele exceptionally weak, and you're able to just win the game by bringing it back in later and making the right call on what to lock in. So Very smart play from Aaliyah over the course of the whole game. Keeping Gyarados safe so you can throw out free Earthquakes is also fantastic. And obviously the paralysis helped a little bit from the discharge, but he had Intimidate to back it up, so I don't think that was essential. And I think fantastic play from Aaliyah to come back from a fairly rough Game 1 loss and really bring it back in Games 2 and 3.
Yeah, you know, you can see by her playstyle how she did really well so far today. You know, she has a great team. She's making the adjustments that she needs to make moving forward. And, you know, 6-0 at a regional must feel pretty good after having, you know, the best record, top 32 in the past.
I think it's definitely one of those performances that is going to inspire. And if you can go on and go X-1 or even undefeated, I don't want to talk about it too much. I know it puts a bit of pressure on players. But if you can go on and get that undefeated record, then you just feel great going into day 2. You feel like you're running hot and you're able to really carry on like that. Of course, Gabriel, for his first tournament, played absolutely fantastically. In Game 1, we saw precision play throughout. Maneuvering around the threats such as the Talonflame, setting up at the perfect time when Tailwind went up. Gabriel definitely has the potential to keep on going and make top cut at his very first tournament, so I really enjoyed that set. I thought it was a very good back and forth set, a lot of information gathering, and a whole heap of choice items as well, which I personally love.
Yeah, it just goes to show you, you know, I think a lot of time on these streams we tend to see players that we've seen once before, but hey, just go out there, give it a shot. You know, there's lots of regionals and mid-season showdowns coming up. I believe the next regional is in a few weeks in St. Louis, actually.
Yeah, it's 2 weeks away, so this is the kind of situation where the tournament metagame is being shaped by a previous regional. They kind of come in bunches. We had Dallas and Athens close together, and Dallas definitely influenced the team decisions for Athens. So this tournament has been a bit of a break since Athens, about a month. Basically, this tournament's going to be able to shape the metagame for St. Louis, and that's something that a lot of players have to pick up on. We, of course, have mid-season showdowns in the meantime, and we see these top players really adapting to the metagame. You know, Aaliyah's adapted very, very well with this Nihilego, which for me is a very good call right now. Nihilego able to put pressure on this Tapu Lele, which has been rising to prominence, and I love the team building. We're actually going to speak to Aaliyah in a little bit about how that team came together.
Yeah, we will, so please stay tuned. Welcome back, everybody. I'm here in Anaheim with Aaliyah Lee, who is currently undefeated going into round 7. How does it feel?
I'm really surprised. Like, I very rarely have win streaks like this, so I don't know if I just got lucky or maybe my team is actually kind of good. I really don't know.
I mean, I think your team is actually kind of very good. You have a lot of really interesting techs on it. How did you sort of approach the team building process?
Well, I get a lot of my information from Cybertron, you know, Aaron Zhang. I watch a lot of his videos. I watch a lot of other players like Baz Anderson and James Beck. So I just sort of maybe took some inspiration from, I think one of them used some of the same Pokemon. I just changed some things. Like, I don't like to copy people exactly. I like to get inspiration from them and just sort of add my own things to it.
Cool. So what's your favorite Pokemon on your team right now?
Well, I do like Buzzwole, even though I didn't get a chance to use him in this match, just because it's the one thing that's sort of different, you know. It's caught some people off guard in some of my earlier matches.
Really?
Yeah.
Has it ever, like, won you any sort of really difficult situations just because it was a Buzzwole?
Yeah, because, you know, a lot of players aren't expecting him, and then he's really good against, like, Pokemon like Garchomp can't really touch him, Kartana can't touch him, you know, and if I gave him poison jabs, you can, like, do some damage to the Tapus.
Nice.
And under Tailwind, you can outspeed, you know, some things, so.
Yeah, speaking of Tailwind, you know, Talonflame's a very interesting choice. You tend to see more like Braviary and Mandibuzz for Tailwind users right now. Any reason why Talonflame jumped out at you?
Well, despite the nerf this season with Gale Wings, I still think it's pretty good because you can send them out, and then no matter how fast your opponent is, you can get your Tailwind off right away. So that's been helpful, you know, as opposed to like Mandibuzz and Braviary are kind of slow, so they can go down, you know, the first turn before they can do anything.
Definitely. So walk me through that match. You seem to have like a little bit of a rough start after game 1. So how did you sort of adjust?
Yeah, I guess I struggle with Ninetales sometimes. So in that first match when he had the Ninetales, I never know if they're just going to attack or if they're going to try to do Aurora Veil. So I thought he would just attack, and instead he did Aurora Veil. So I'm like, oh, great, now I can't knock anything out, you know. So that kind of sort of threw me off from there. But then afterwards, I sort of noticed he tended to, like, you know, not really protect too much and just really go on the attack in a lot of his turns. So I tried to play with that, and I guess it worked out in the end.
Yeah,
so,
it worked out really well. I mean, you were able to knock out the Ninetales before it got a Royal Veil up ever again.
Yeah, Yeah.
which is always a great place to start. And otherwise, you just have really good sort of offensive synergy. You're making some really, really good switches there.
Yeah, and, my Garchomp is scarfed, so I had to make sure that, I have Pokemon that can switch into Earthquake. So I have Gyarados and Talonflame. And even Buzzwole, takes no damage from Earthquake. So in a lot of my other games, I would just Earthquake next to Buzzwole. Wouldn't take, hardly any damage.
Buzzwole seems like one of those Pokemon that will just be like, yeah, I'm still just going to stand here,
Yeah. You just keep him away from, special attacks, and he's pretty good.
Yeah, so I have to ask about that Tapu Koko. It did a ton of damage. Any sort of
it's
hints?
choice specs.
Okay.
It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, we were speculating about it,
Yeah.
especially in Game 3 when you switched it out to get rid of the Dazzling Gleam. But sometimes I just got to ask.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, it's fine.
Cool. Well,
Yeah.
anything else, any shout-outs you want to give? Anything else happened today that you've been pretty excited about?
Just winning. I've just... because that loss against him was my first loss the whole region.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm so shocked. I mean, I did get lucky a couple games, but I don't know if I just got lucky paired against opponents who are weak to my team. I don't know. I'm in shock. I don't usually do this good, but
it can't all be luck. You've been playing incredibly well,
yeah,
so just keep that up.
Yeah, so also, like I said, I watch a lot of Cybertron, James Beck, Baz Anderson, so shout out to them for all the information I've gotten from them. Oh, Wolfie Glick too, forgot to mention him. Of course him.
Just that Wolfie Glick guy and his YouTube channel.
That guy, yeah.
All right, well, thank you so much for talking with us. Best of luck for the rest of today, and hopefully we'll see you back in Top Cut.
Well, I hope so. Thank you so much.
Fingers crossed. All right, please stay tuned, guys. We'll be back with round 7 shortly.